Hi there, welcome or welcome back. Today we're doing another TikTok reaction video. I thought I would look at specifically dating coaches and what they have to say. Let's take a look.
I've observed in my matchmaking business is that women who are smart, independent, and successful tend to struggle the most in their dating lives. And I believe this is because of hypergamy, which
I'm gonna stop you right there, Nelly. It is so funny when people use the term hypergamy because it is such a dead giveaway that they are lost in the red pill sauce. Hypergamy is not a term that I have ever heard in my training in clinical psychology or anthropology for that matter, because I did minor in anthropology in college. Despite my issues with evolutionary psychology, I do really like one TikToker who does evolutionary psychology content. I can't remember his name, but I'll try to find it and put it on the screen here. And he does a really good job of diving into why the term hypergamy is not accurate in the way that we use it. Because yes, while women tend to date up in terms of socioeconomic status, men also tend to date up in terms of the attractiveness of their mate. So men and women alike are hypergamous in some sense of the word, but women are the only ones that get a lot of heat for it in some of these communities that use words like hypergamous, because it's really meant to evoke this stereotype of women as callous, calculating, manipulative, just out for money, out to steal what men have rightfully earned, which is obviously incredibly incorrect and offensive and not how the world works. But let's keep seeing what she has to say.
which basically means that women tend to want to date up. They want someone who's superior to them financially and in status and in IQ. And so what happens is the more money a woman makes and the more independent she becomes, the more her dating pool shrinks, because the pool of men that she is going to be attracted to is going to be smaller. But the problem is men date based on a different criteria. Men are not dating women based on their wealth. They're not dating women based on their IQ. They're dating them based on, is she going to be a good mother to my kids? Is she nurturing? Does she make me feel like a man? Is she attractive? And so you have this imbalance, and it becomes a bigger problem as women.
It's not an imbalance. What she's describing is not an imbalance where women are hypergamous and men are not. It's just women tend to overall, as a trend, look for different things in mates than men do, but both date up in some sense of the word. And also, obviously, we're talking about trends here. So yes, there are trends that are established, but we also need to keep in mind that within group heterogeneity is way bigger than between group heterogeneity. And so the difference between one woman and the next is going to be overall larger than the difference between one woman and one man. Always keep in mind that trends do not mean that this is the case for every single person. There is a ton of variation in what people want in something as personal as who they want to pick as their mate.
Get older, because then they start competing with women who are 5, 10, 15 plus years younger than
competing. Women are not competition to each other. At the end of the day, yes, humans are animals, but we're also very high order animals, and we're capable of empathizing and bonding and taking part in pro-social behavior, and it is not all a competition and not all about mating. Okay, we have evolved past the point where we have to completely give in to every instinct and evolutionary impulse that we get.
them. And again, because men are not dating off the same values and criteria, it makes it harder for them to find a mate. And I think this stems from a few different things. One being feminism,
I'm not surprised.
the road to hell is paved with good intention. I don't think feminism is a bad thing, but I do think
You sure? Kind of sounds like you think that.
it's unsurprising that the more independent women have become, the more childless and single they've stayed, and also the destruction of the family nucleus. As divorce rates started to rise, you had more moms telling their
This is another talking point that red pillars love to talk about is, oh, the destruction of the family nucleus and divorce rates are rising. You guys, I have never once in my life expressed concern or felt concern about divorce rates rising. First of all, because I don't think that a relationship ending is necessarily a moral failure. Secondly, because I think it is fantastic for people to leave situations that are not working for them. And thirdly, because without this, we would be back where we were in the 19th, 18th, 17th centuries, where women were basically property, no financial means to extricate themselves from abusive marriages, and were basically trapped for life. As an alternative, no, I don't think that that is bad. I don't think it's the road to hell that we're suddenly divorcing at higher rates. Would it be nice if people could get along and find mates that are compatible with them and have a happy family nucleus? Yes, of course. But you're not going to get those things by enforcing that people stay in shitty relationships or by sending women this message that don't aim too high, don't try to be too financially independent because your dating pool is going to be smaller that way. I am really curious whether Nelly is a financially independent person, whether she herself is dependent on anyone else, what her dating pool looks like. She seems like a somewhat successful woman who runs her own dating business, whatever that means. So I have to wonder, is she pandering to certain types of people that are going to want to eat this content up because she knows that's what's going to sell? At the end of the day, as long as she's getting her financial independence, no skin off her back, right?
Daughters, don't ever put yourself in a position where you have to depend on a man. And like, was the juice worth the squeeze? Let me know what you think in the comments.
Yes. Do I have to say that? Yes, the juice was worth the squeeze. Nelly, my God, girl, like, do you know what the alternative is? Like, I am all for stay-at-home moms and women doing whatever they want in terms of their career. But you cannot deny that it is a risky situation to put yourself in where your entire livelihood and financial well-being is dependent on somebody else's income. And where you have a huge years-long gap in your CV where if something happens and you have to go back to work, it's going to be very challenging to get yourself out of that situation. There are tons of testimonials out there of divorce lawyers talking about how you never really think that it's going to happen to you. You never think that your husband is going to be the one that's going to get into a catastrophic accident or be the one to leave you for someone else or for some reason divorce you and not want to give you a cent for all those years that you put into building the family. But Nelly, like you said, the divorce rate is very high, so that is definitely a risk. So if the question is, was feminism worth it for women to get financial independence? My answer would be absolutely.
Fellas, remember one thing, man. If a woman breaks up with you over something petty, something minor, she wasn't that into you.
I love how he calls himself a czar. Something petty, something minor. What do you mean by that? Because there is no minor reason that someone would want to leave a relationship. If something is a deal breaker for them, then it's a deal breaker for them. And if they have self-respect, then they're going to honor that their deal breakers are deal breakers and not stay in situations where their boundaries have been crossed.
The more attracted a woman is to you, the more she likes you, the more she lets you get away with things, bro.
I mean, I guess that's a little bit true. Yeah, the more you like somebody, the more you're willing to give them a little bit of leeway. But when it comes to self-respect, again, someone that's self-respecting, that's not going to factor in very much. I feel like what he's really referring to is low self-esteem, not actually being that into someone.
I'm telling you to go out and to do anything shiesty. I'm not telling you to be that toxic man. That's not what I preach. But what I am saying is, women would let me get away with shit I couldn't even believe, but I wasn't doing it intentionally, okay? Because they liked me so much. They were so attracted to me. If a woman breaks up with you because she assumes that you were cheating with no proof, or she saw you maybe talking to a girl and
if she saw you talking to a girl in an inappropriate way, in a way that she perceived to cross her boundaries, that's not a petty reason.
Took it as you flirting. She wasn't that into you, bro. She's letting you down in a nice way, okay? The more a woman is attracted to you, the more she lets you get away with, bro. If she breaks up with you over something fucking petty, she wasn't that into you, move the...
Well, what do you mean petty? Like, when I think about, like, a petty reason to break up with someone, I'm thinking, like, oh, you didn't like the type of pants that they wore, or you didn't like the way that they used a certain word. Like, those are petty reasons. Saying, I didn't like your behavior in this situation, I felt disrespected, that's not minor, that's not petty, that's just self-respect, dude. I'm curious about this guy, czar of dating.
Fellas, what do you do if your girl ever blocks you on the phone? That is highly disrespectful, my friend. If a girl ever blocks me on the phone that I'm dating, guess what? She's gonna feel that smooth pullback from me. It's almost gonna be as smooth as a Cuban cigar hit.
Well, I mean, she blocked you, so this kind of reads like, you can't fire me, I quit.
She's not gonna hear from me for at least a week, maybe even 2 weeks.
Again, she blocked you, so I don't know what you're talking about. Also, I talk about this in the connection course, but oftentimes people use stonewalling or the silent treatment as a punishment. And this is a perfect example of that. Very systematically ignoring someone so that they don't do that behavior again in the future. That is the most toxic use of stonewalling. Whereas most people stonewall, like I mentioned in the course, because they're feeling emotionally dysregulated, they're feeling flooded, they don't know what to do with their emotions. There are some people who actually stonewall to punish, and it's incredibly harmful.
She will be put on check, bro. You have to check certain negative behaviors. That is one of them. You cannot let your girl get away with her blocking you. That is highly disrespectful.
What did she block you over, dude? Like, what? Now, look, maybe he's actually describing the same situation where someone didn't block because they needed space or because they decided they don't want to be in your life, but rather because they want to punish you. And they're planning on coming back, but first they want to throw in a little manipulation to make sure you don't do whatever you did again. If that's the case, obviously that's also not healthy behavior, but you can't deal with stonewalling by further stonewalling. Then you're just doing this toxic cycle where both of you are losing, and that is not a healthy relationship.
You guys still don't get it. If you let certain people get away with negative behaviors, it builds and builds and builds and builds until she's cheating on you, until she's making fun of you behind your back to other men, until she's talking shit about you to everyone
Feels like it got really specific and really personal all of a sudden.
else around her. You need to check that shit as a man, bro. And if you guys are arguing about something, you guys are discussing something in person, and she turns away, shows you her back, and she walks away as you're talking to her, that is also highly disrespectful. That is being dismissive. I've had girls do this to me in the past in toxic relationships. I didn't know how to handle it. Now, if a girl, I'd be damned if a girl ever does that, number one, if it even gets to that point with the way things are with me and women and my dating life. But if this ever happens to you, you give them that smooth pullback. You have to pull back, motherfucker. That is the only way you handle that. She cannot hear from you for at least a week, 2 weeks. You gotta let her know that shit ain't cool. So if she...
Punishing someone for physically removing themselves from your presence in a moment of feeling overwhelmed is incredibly unhealthy. He seems very preoccupied with women showing him respect. If you respect yourself, if you have that inner self-worth, you don't constantly need to go around telling people, respect me, I demand that you respect me, how dare you disrespect me? Because you know from within, you're secure. If somebody exhibits disrespectful behavior, that is not the relationship for you. You don't need to manipulate people and punish them and stonewall them because you felt disrespected. That was really scary.
A little fired up right now, I'm legitimately mad. So I just got off a coaching call with a guy. He was about probably the third or fourth guy I've coached in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I've coached a lot of girls too. Guys and girls are dealing with the same stuff. Girls keep losing their men to their men's exes. Guys keep losing their girls because the girls need to find themselves. And they tell me the same thing, I treated them absolutely perfect. They tell me I'm absolutely perfect, that they have never had anybody treat them the way that I treat them. But it's still not enough. And I asked them this one question, and it literally has not failed. What type of relationships were they in before you? Every single one of them have told me toxic relationships. That's the only common denominator. They are used to the toxicity. They are addicted to it. They don't know a good thing if it hit them in the damn...
Okay, so this is an interesting topic. I feel like this is true to some extent, and the opposite is also true to some extent. Something that I observed working with therapy clients is when somebody comes out of a toxic relationship, they often perceive the new relationship as so much healthier than they could have ever imagined. They say, oh my God, this is the most idyllic relationship. It's perfect. I'm treated like a queen or a king compared to my previous relationship. And in reality, if you look at the facts of their relationship, it's kind of an average relationship. It's not all that. Maybe there are some instances of disrespect or some unhealthy components in the relationship, but because their baseline of what is normal is something so toxic, they actually perceive anything better than that as incredibly idealized. So in a sense, I feel like I've kind of observed the opposite of what he's saying, but I do also kind of agree with him because there is this phenomenon of when you are addicted to toxic relationships, it's been your baseline your whole life, you're constantly trying to have that corrective experience of that one original toxic relationship. The lack of sort of explosiveness and excitement of a toxic relationship can feel like you don't have those butterflies, you don't have that passion in a relationship. And it can take people a while to kind of get used to, hey, this is a healthy relationship. It's actually not healthy to be fighting every week or every other day and then to be making up really passionately. That's actually not something that you should aspire to. And actually the day-to-day monotony, I guess you would call it, of just a healthy relationship is much better for you in the long run. So yeah, I kind of like 50% agree with him, 50% disagree with him. I feel like it kind of depends.
If someone consistently ignores or dismisses your needs, the important question to ask is not, why do they keep doing that? No. The important question to ask is, what in the world am I doing in a connection where my needs are being ignored or dismissed? That's the question right there. In other words, what the hell am I doing in a situation where I'm not being heard? You answer those questions and you're guaranteed to get some clarity.
I think it's so often that we need to kind of remind ourselves of what is actually within our control to accomplish. Trying to psychoanalyze someone, trying to change them, trying to get them into therapy, those things are not really up to us. Those things are up to them. Something that I talk about in the boundaries section of my course is this idea that usually the consequence of a boundary being disrespected, the only thing that you can really do is remove yourself from that situation or from that relationship. That's kind of the only control that you have over an interpersonal dynamic. You can't really force someone to change who they are as a person. You can only remove yourself when something doesn't work for you. That's also why at the beginning of the course I give some journaling prompts to help people gain clarity on what are my deal breakers, so that later on when those deal breakers come up, you know to recognize them right away and you know when to remove yourself. And the opposite is true as well. You can't just remove yourself or threaten to remove yourself if the thing in question isn't actually a deal breaker for you. You know, like you can't say to someone, I don't like when you use that word. If you use that word again, I'm gonna break up with you. Like, if that's not a deal breaker for you, then you're being stubborn or manipulative by threatening that it is.
Women love assholes. Guys that we coach come into our program who are nice guys, and they think that women are the problem, when really it's their nice guy syndrome that's helping them not ever meet a woman. But the truth is, assholes know how to be direct, truthful, honest, and assertive.
No. There's a spectrum, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's not like be a pushover and be passive aggressive and be manipulative, or be so direct and honest that it hurts other people's feelings. That healthy middle ground is the best of both worlds, where you are kind and at the same time assertive and honest.
While nice guys are really manipulative and fake and give girls the ick.
I mean, yeah, there is this whole like nice guy syndrome of men who say, I'm such a nice guy, why does no one want to date me? And then when you actually hear their perspective on the fact that people don't want to date them, it's not very nice at all. It's very entitled and sort of like playing the victim card as a way to get people to date them. But the conflation of asshole with someone who is assertive and able to speak their truth honestly and clearly is not accurate. You know, those two are not the same construct. Like I said, dishonest and a pushover and overly nice, and then there is being overly direct and aggressive. And that middle point is where assertiveness is. Assertiveness lies between passivity and aggression. Okay, let's kind of debrief. I feel like that was a lot. I feel like in this day and age, dating coach is such a signal for a label where someone doesn't have specific training or education in the realm of relationships, and yet they want to monetize some kind of service. A lot of times what they're actually doing is some form of more solution-focused therapy. And as someone who is trained to be a therapist, I find myself feeling conflicted about people not going through the effort of actually training for this stuff and then reaping the rewards without honestly the regulations. You know, there are a ton of governing bodies out there like the American Counseling Association, the American Psychological Association, and so forth, that are meant to regulate that therapists are actually behaving ethically, legally, they're not harming clients, that they're actually helping them. When you don't have a label like that, there's not really any sense of consequence. You know, like these labels and governing bodies exist first and foremost to protect the public from people who are going to scam them. Now, where I start to feel a little bit conflicted is I don't think that someone necessarily needs formal training to be of service to others and to cause positive change in someone's life. You know, there are some dating coaches out there where I feel like they've done a lot of independent work on themselves, or they've sort of learned in untraditional ways, and they do still have a lot of insights to share with other people, a lot of value that they want to provide, and they're able to be very compassionate and warm and helpful to people when they interact with them one-on-one. The risk is that when there is no governing body for this, some of them can be helpful and some of them can be harmful. And I think some of the people that we reacted to today are a really good demonstration of how harmful it can be. What do you think about this? Let me know. Do you think the risks outweigh the benefits, or the benefits outweigh the risks when we're talking about uncertified coaches and sort of people helping each other one-on-one, but there's no sort of governing body to step in if there's harm being done? Anyway, yeah, I guess that was what it was. Was in my favorite topic to react to. I'll see you soon.